D&D number 10, Circle of Life in Jesus' Name, Part 2, Chapter 22. Young Eric stopped thinking about the people who'd come to watch and focused on the task at hand. The place was filling up. All three softball coaches arrived, and the UCLA athletic director also arrived. When Master Foreman ordered his assistant to lock the front door, there were 48 spectators. They watched as Grandmaster Keno on the other side of the room placed his hand on young Eric's shoulder, and they both bowed their heads. After that, they bowed to one another. Grandmaster Keno said something to young Eric. He nodded and turned to the visitors. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all again, and I think a few extra too. May I introduce to you Master Foreman? He runs this particular Keno studio. Eric turned to him and bowed. Master Foreman bowed to the visitors. And it gives me immense pleasure to be able to introduce to you my grandfather, Grandmaster Eric Keno. The elder Eric also bowed to the visitors. Young Eric turned back. We are going to try to go through the day as normally as possible. We will treat you all to lunch here at noon. You're welcome to leave then to get your own if you prefer, but at 1:30 the doors get locked again. Please refrain from loud talking, and if you have any questions, my aunt, Dr. Keno Wallace, will be here in about an hour, and you can ask her. Until she gets here, Jordan might be able to answer your questions. If you stick around after lunch, you will see several large and very mean men come into the studio, Eric joked with a smile. They will be here to beat me up. But each Friday, it's getting a little harder for them to do that. Today, my Uncle Joey Adams, the current challenge champion, will be here, and also a guy named John Sweet, who is a private special forces dude from Australia, whose main problem when he fights me is trying to not kill me. The group laughed. Eric shook his head, and I'm not even joking. I'm not sure who else is coming, but I think it's a few masters from some of the other studios. Anyway, if you like to watch the challenge, then you should enjoy this afternoon's sparring. One more rule. No video is to be taken, so put those phones away. Afterward, if you want some pics, we can accommodate that. So I'm going to shut up and get to work now. He ran back to the center of the floor and did some more stretching, some of it seemingly impossible. Then Grandmaster Keno called him to work on kicks. Almost immediately, he was being corrected and made to do it 20 more times with one leg and then the other. It went into combination kicks and punches. His targets started with the large bag hanging from the ceiling. To the large pad Master Foreman held, to Master Foreman himself wearing a chest protector. The girls jumped a few times at first because whenever Eric kicked, the sound of his foot hitting the bag or Master Foreman made a very loud popping sound. Several times he knocked Master Foreman down. Jordan was smiling, nodding her head in approval. After about 30 minutes of constant kicking, Eric was given a few seconds to wipe the sweat from his face and gulp some water. He immediately started on fight sequences and kick and punch combinations that Grandmaster Keno called out. This was the part that really impressed Jordan. It seemed he called out very long sequences and combinations. Only a few times did 3 say, repeat. He had to be completely focused, completely immersed. His look of concentration had Jordan's heart beating faster. There was something about a guy doing his thing that was ultra attractive. He went nonstop for an hour and was breathing very hard. The sweat poured from his body. He got to where he couldn't see what he was doing, and he had to grab a towel and wipe his face a few times. When he stumbled and fell onto his back, the visitors all made an ooh sound, but were astounded by what they heard. Get up, Grandmaster Keno commanded. Eric nodded as he gasped for rest, but didn't move. You have 30 seconds to get up or you'll do 1,000 abs. Eric nodded again and forced himself to his knees, then slowly rose to a fighting stance. Double side kick, Grandmaster Keno stated. Cross, cross, uppercut, spinning hook. Go. Somehow he was able to dig deep and give his grandfather what he wanted. When he finished, he swayed, waiting for the next command. Get water, change to a dry shirt, and we'll do the ab work. Eric bowed to his grandfather, ran to where he kept his bag, drank some water, toweled himself off, and pulled the soaking wet shirt over his head. Oh, my gosh. Do you see that? Jordan turned to smile at one of his teammates. He's something, isn't he? Is he human? I'm not sure, Jordan said softly, watching as he pulled on a dry shirt. He's human, Dr. Kino said with a laugh. He just works really hard. Jordan smiled at her. You're really proud of him, aren't you? Yes, I am. He's got such a good heart. He works tirelessly. He wants to do good in the world. He's humble. He's funny. He loves his family. I'm so proud of him. His grandfather's really hard on him, one of the girls said. Like when he collapsed, he made him get back up. Well, it's important, Jeffy answered, to discover that when you think you can't go another second or do one more push-up or run one more step, you actually can. Dig deep and just do it. My father made him get up to show him that he could. If he were in a fight for his life, it would be important to know that you can do it. You can get back up and keep fighting. The coaches and several girls nodded. Well, I think Grandmaster Kino is really mean, another girl said. Jeffy laughed. Oh, he's a big teddy bear. He's in teaching mode right now, and he knows young Eric can take it. But my father is so kind, so gentle. You should see him with the little ones. He tells them stories and tickles them and plays with them, and he'd do anything to help anyone. He's not mean. He's tough. Coddling people is not being loving. It's the worst thing you can do for them. So, when you get married and have your own children and you want them to be strong, successful people, don't coddle them. Be tough, seasoned with love. Dr. Kino, you are very wise, a girl said. She smiled. My father's words. They turned to watch as young Eric was made to go through a grueling ab workout. He went until he fell onto his back again. He was made to get up again, and he fell again. And that second time, he gave a soft curse and got up quickly and ran into the men's locker room. Jordan smiled. He was throwing up again, bless his heart. He thought he'd gotten past that part. Young Eric came back quickly, apologized to Grandmaster Kino for the interruption, and continued on. The end of the ab workout and noon arrived at the same time, by design. Eric got up slowly from the floor and walked over to the crowd watching. Hey, everyone. So, as you can see, my sweet grandmother has arrived with the caterers with lunch for everyone. Doors are open if you wish to leave or get some air or resume training at 1:30 on the dot. So, I'm just going to bless the food real quick. Bow your heads if you wish to join. Father, we are so grateful for the food we're about to eat. Bless it, we pray, and bless all those who partake, that they may be nourished and healed in any way they need. In Jesus' name, amen. He headed immediately to Jordan, looked at her and then at her friends. You ready to chow down? Yes, Jordan said. Well, let's have a giant picnic right here on the floor. He started toward the large tables covered with food. Hey, three. He turned. It was Jordan's voice. It wasn't Jordan's voice. It was Colton's. Yeah, that was pretty freaking impressive. He grinned. Thanks, but, well, it ain't over. I don't know how you can even walk around right now. He shrugged. There was a time that I couldn't, but it gets a little easier every day. By the time the challenge happens, I should be good to go. They all joined him in grabbing plates filled with Subway-type sandwiches, healthy bags of snacks and fruits, and then sat in a large circle on the floor of the studio. As they ate, the girls, the coaches, and even the athletic director asked questions, some about the reasoning behind some of the moves he was working on, some about the coming challenge, and one about what they'd heard Jordan and Colton call him, 3. He explained Jordan's reasoning, and all agreed they liked it. Young Eric finished his lunch and relaxed back against the wall. Taking Jordan's hand, he kissed it, gave it a squeeze, and set it down. I'm going to relax and digest for a bit. She leaned close. You do that. I'm going to go see if Miss Shelley needs help with anything. That's very thoughtful, Jordan. No problem. I mean, you told me about her having a hard time lately. I think I just want to give her a hug. Well, she would like that, I'm sure. She started to get up, but he jerked on her arm and she fell back against his chest. He kissed her. She giggled and pulled away. You know, there are a lot of people around. He smiled. Sorry, I forgot for a minute. You make me forget everything. Shaking her head, she pulled away and went to help. Colton joined her. You know, you just made every female in this building green with envy. Jordan laughed. I didn't do it. He did. So have you two... No, we haven't. Now shush, and let's go help Miss Shelley. Everyone had eaten, used the bathrooms, walked outside and breathed some fresh air, come back in and found a place to sit, ready for the afternoon spectacle. 3 was stretching and warming up. He'd been right about some very mean-looking guys coming into the studio. 5 of them. Master Linney from the Compton studio. Master Carlton from the Long Beach studio. Master Cook from the Hillcrest studio. John Sweet, a jet from Ameritech. Cam Wallace, also a jet. And Joey Adams. Jordan had been surprised to see Master Cook and immediately went up to him and shook his hand. Master Cook, it's nice to see you again. He nodded and shook her hand. You too, Miss Jordan Brooks, right? Wow, yes, I can't believe you remember. Well, when Master Keno walks into my studio with his girlfriend, you make a special note. She giggled. I'm a nobody. I doubt he sees it that way. So you're going to beat him up today? I don't know. Guess we're about to see. Jordan went back to her seat. Grandmaster Keno walked to the middle of the floor, and the room became immediately silent. Eric Sr. gave a bow. We're going to get started because we have a lot to work on. While they're taping their hands, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our 5 sparring volunteers today. Master Linney is a 6th-degree black belt from our studio in Compton. He's 6 feet, 180 pounds, and a former Army Ranger. Master Linney bowed while the group applauded. Master Carlton is also a 6th-degree black belt from our Long Beach studio. He's 6 feet, 186 pounds, and a former cornerback from the LA Rams. Eric waited for the applause to end. Master Cook comes to us from our Hillcrest studio. He's a 5th-degree black belt and is 6'1", 195 pounds, and a former Marine. After the applause, he went on. John Sweet is a jet, which, for those who don't know, is like special ops in the military, only a jet works for Ameritech Security and stands for Jason's Elite Tactical Agent. John is 6'3" and weighs 205 pounds. John is helping us last minute by stepping in for Cameron Wallace, my son-in-law, young Eric's uncle, who was injured on a mission recently and so was not currently able to beat up on his nephew. John, being the good friend that he is, volunteered to do the deed. He waited for the laughter and applause to subside. And last, but definitely not least, the current Keno Challenge champion, also young Eric's uncle, also a jet, and second in command at Ameritech Security, Joey Adams. Joey is 6 feet and 179 pounds. And he's fast as hell, John put in quickly. He smiled at Grandmaster Keno, who raised his brow at the agent. Sorry, mate. I mean, sir. My admiration for my boss got the best of me. Grandmaster Keno turned back to the group. As I'm sure you can tell from his accent, John is an Aussie, and he's very exuberant, and by the way, very available. That remark had all the girls swooning and all the men chuckling because it will make John pay for interrupting. John nodded at Grandmaster Keno with a smile. Well done. Eric Sr. smiled. Those are today's challengers. Eric is a 3rd-degree black belt, 6'2", 180 pounds, so let's get on with it. Master Linney, you're up. Master Foreman will ref. What he says goes. If I say halt, that means stop immediately. Do not pull punches. Do not go easy on him. That won't help him. The only thing we won't do today is groin kicks. Remember, the challenge is a no-holds-barred, bare-knuckles tournament. It's real. It's dangerous. Let's get young Eric ready. We'll go 3 3-minute rounds with each of you. That gives him 15 rounds if he makes it. 1 minute rest period between each round, 5 minutes between each match. Master Linney pulled off his shirt and strode to the center of the mat. There was an excitement in the air as they watched. 3 fold himself in half at the end of his stretching routine. He pulled off his shirt and walked to the middle of the floor. Both young Eric and Master Linney turned and bowed to Grandmaster Keno, then to Master Foreman. And once they bowed to each other, they fell immediately into a fighting stance. Begin, Master Foreman said sharply. Jordan reached down and squeezed Colton's hand in nervousness. Colton smiled up at her. I think 3 is the hottest guy I've ever seen. Good Lord, Jordan, look at him. Is he real? Jordan giggled. Sometimes I wonder. She watched as the 2 men went at each other. 3 was blocking well, or so she thought. By the end of the first round, neither man had landed a punch or a kick. That was better than last Friday, she guessed in her uneducated state. He sat down for the 1 minute rest time, drank some water, spit some water, tried to catch his breath. Second round, it was 3 who struck first. He landed a second side kick, then spun with the hook kick. Jordan recognized it as the sequence Grandmaster Keno had made him get up and do earlier when he'd collapsed. Double side kick, spinning hook kick. But then Master Lenny landed a glancing blow to Eric's face, and he went down. He quickly rolled and came up, shook it off, and fought back hard. Still, he received more than he gave, and was glad when the second 3 minutes ended. Jordan watched him. He looked pitiful as Grandmaster Keno spoke to him about what he did right or wrong, wiped blood from a small cut over his brow, had him drink, and finally set him out to meet his next opponent, Master Carlton. That match went pretty much the way of the first one, with 3 holding his own for the first round and then getting pummeled in the second round. Against Master Cook, again, about the same, though at one point 3 put Master Cook down briefly. Master Cook retaliated by almost knocking 3 out. Grandmaster Keno called a halt to the fight. Master Cook immediately apologized, and Grandmaster Keno shook his hand. Never apologized for fighting well. I stopped the fight to allow him time to recover. I want him trained and ready, not dead. But Eric will learn much from what just happened. Right, Eric? Young Eric nodded. Yes, sir. First lesson. Don't ever cross this man, he said breathlessly. The group laughed, but Jordan was worried. She got up and went to where Jeffy sat in a chair and whispered in her ear, Is he okay? Jeffy closed her eyes. He's a little dizzy. No concussion. He's very tired. There's pain in his left thigh. He might have pulled a muscle or a cramp. Yes, I think it's a cramp. Jeffy smiled at her. He's okay. Don't worry, sweetie. But I have to say, I love the way you love him. Oh, are you reading me? Well, in my defense, you're projecting. But also, you're just easy to read. Your love for him is strong, and I love that. Don't worry. Now go sit and enjoy. He's not in distress physically or emotionally. Jordan bit on her lip and went back to her place next to Colton. What did you ask her? Colton whispered. Tell you later, though you probably won't believe me. Jordan watched as Grandmaster Keno knelt in front of 3, his hand on his leg, speaking and nodding. 3 appeared to be asking him a question, and he was answering, then stood to demonstrate, moving his own leg in a wide circle, so fast that Jordan's mouth fell open. She looked around and saw other people also watching Grandmaster Keno, also seemingly similarly impressed. She hadn't really thought about it, but of course, the man who knew how to teach so many could also do everything that he taught. Very cool. Everyone was excited about seeing the Aussie fight next. He looked so big out there on the mat. He wasn't smiling and acting silly anymore. He was dead serious. Don't kill him, Cam reminded him, making everyone laugh except for Jordan. Her heart was beating a mile a minute. 3 took several deep breaths and walked out onto the mat. They bowed like the others did. Eric settled into a fighting stance, and John only stood very still. Eric spun with blinding speed, intending to land a hook kick, but John caught his leg, elbowed him in the butt, and in the gut, not the butt, elbowed him in the gut, and Eric landed on his back. Master Foreman waved John off, made sure Eric was okay, and allowed him to stand and restarted the fight. Eric went at John with several punches, which were blocked, a kick which actually missed, and 2 more punches which John also blocked. He held onto Eric's arm and punched him in the face and then threw him over his shoulder, and young Eric landed with a thud. The rest of the round went the same way, and when time was called, Eric limped over to sit and listen to his grandfather. After the minute of rest and instruction, Eric came back out. He circled and waited. John charged in with punches and kick combinations, all of which Eric blocked. Then at the moment John was slightly off balance on the last blocked kick, Eric spun and delivered a roundhouse with blinding speed and kicked him right in the face, and John hit the mat. And the crowd cheered. John rose quickly. The rest of the round was at as electrifying speed. They were moving so fast it was almost impossible to tell what was happening. Jordan was pretty sure that both John and 3 had gotten in a few more punches, but unfortunately ended when Eric leaped in the air intending to kick John in the face, but John stumbled as he tried to block with the kick and accidentally caught Eric in the groin, and Eric went down immediately. John knelt by him. Geez, sorry, mate. Knowing there were a bunch of females watching, Eric worked hard to not grab himself, but couldn't stop the moan. Take deep breaths, John said. Eric grunted in pain several times and curled in a ball, his breath coming in great gasps. Can you hear me, mate? Eric couldn't speak, but he nodded, and finally he struggled to his knees and sat there for a full minute, waiting for the pain to subside. Jordan's eyes were opened wide. There was nothing to do except watch him suffer through the waves of pain. Grandmaster Keno knelt in front of him. Going away yet? Yes, sir, he said breathlessly, almost. There's 30 seconds left in the bout. You want to stay down? No, sir. Let's finish it, young Eric said as he slowly got to his feet and stood ready. He waited for the ref to start the fight and did his best to block the incoming punches and kicks for 30 more seconds. He took a few more body shots before the time was up. Grandmaster Keno nodded his approval as young Eric staggered back to sit and rest, waiting for the next bout, the hardest bout, the one against his uncle. You're making progress, Eric, his grandfather said. It doesn't feel like I am, he complained. Yeah, well, your perspective is off, unless you think I don't know what I'm talking about. No, sir, that's not what I think. Okay, then. So buck up. Now, tell me what's Joey's #1 attribute? Speed. Correct. So concentrate on blocking. You're not going to be able to get inside unless he leaves an opening, but he will eventually leave an opening. Eric nodded. It's almost time. Drink some water. Breathe deep and slow. One more bout. You can do this. He nodded again, stood, walked to the mat. His uncle put a hand on his head. You okay, buddy? Yes, sir. Joey smiled at him. Block. Do you hear me? He nodded. Same thing Granddad said. Of course he did. Joey stepped back, pulled his shirt over his head, and tossed it aside. Good grief, Colton whispered to Jordan. The whole family, they're just not real. Yeah, and he just turned 38. Amazing, right? Uncle and nephew bowed and the fight began. Joey punched so fast, so many times within the first 30 seconds, young Eric had been hit several times. His nose was already bleeding. Block, Joey said fiercely. I would if I could see it coming, Eric returned. Don't watch my fists, feel it. Be blind. Block like you feel it's coming at you. He tried what Joey was saying and actually was able to block the next several punches, but he was so tired, and it felt like he was moving in slow motion. Joey kicked and Eric went down. He struggled to his feet. Joey kicked again. Eric went down again. He tried to get up, but stumbled and fell onto his back, breathing hard. One more time, Grandmaster Keno said softly. Get up just one more time. Eric turned onto his stomach, worked his knees underneath him, and pushed himself up, and he stood ready. Joey came at him again. Eric was so tired that he stopped thinking. It was instinct that made him move his head to one side, making Joey miss. Again, instinctively, Eric's fist struck out, and he connected. Joey staggered back with the force of the blow and nodded his head with a smile. Good job. Eric smiled. Thanks, he said, as he fell forward. Joey caught him, held him for a few moments, and then let him sink to the floor. Young Eric on his knees, his head bent, couldn't will himself to do anything else. The attendees were on their feet, all clapping hard for the young man who'd worked so hard, who'd endured to the end, who'd definitely practiced what he preached, which was to give one's all. He'd given it. Jordan stood and clapped too, her eyes moist with the emotion she felt. She loved him so. She was so proud of him. He was so strong. He'd endured so much today, even more than the other times she'd watched. She had so much respect for him, not just because of what he can do in the martial arts, but because with all that, he's still humble and kind and compassionate, and like Grandmaster Keno says, he serves. He serves others because God says of those who have much, much is expected. If she'd had any doubts before that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with this guy, she had no doubts now. She hoped and prayed he felt the same way about her. While young Eric went to shower and dress, Grandmaster Keno came to speak to the softball coaches and the athletic director of UCLA. He shook their hands and answered their questions. They were very impressed and very grateful for the opportunity to be allowed to witness something that thousands of people would love to see. The athletic director asked Grandmaster Keno if he, or Ricky, or young Eric would consider speaking to other athletes at the school. And Grandmaster Keno told them they could work something out and to be in touch. The masters of the Keno studios who'd come to spar with young Eric also made their way around, shaking hands and inviting people out to their respective studios. Joey and John Sweet also made their way around, shaking hands, answering questions, and allowing selfies. Joey laughed as John was asked out several times and actually exchanged numbers with several girls. There was a large murmuring as young Eric, the star of today's show, re-emerged, freshly showered and dressed. Even the small cut over his eyebrow and the new bruise on his cheek didn't diminish from his good looks. They made him look rugged, sexy. The girls crowded around to shake hands, get selfies with him, and tell him how awesome he was and how inspiring he was, and how they were now going to work as hard as him at all of their endeavors. It seemed he spoke with each and every one of Jordan's team members, and finally he looked past the last one and saw Jordan, smiling, patiently waiting her turn. He finished the selfie and made his way to her. He might have been suffering from that ailment Agent Tanner and his buddies were always talking about, the primal post-war reaction syndrome thing, but right now all he wanted to do was get Jordan alone. He didn't smile, he didn't stop, he just grabbed her and kissed her very passionately. Jordan's teammates all turned to watch the moment. "Woo-hoo," one said as she cheered them on. A few others joined with applause. Sheepishly, he pulled away, and when he did, he was breathless again, like he'd been all day. "Wow," Jordan said, breathing hard herself. "Where did that come from?" He shook his head. "It's all I could think about doing while I was taking a shower. Actually, that's not true. I could think about doing a lot more things than that." Well, I'm not sure what to say to that," Jordan said. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't say things like that. I just had an overwhelming need to be close to you." "I'm glad you did. And I would love to get close to you if these people would just hurry and go home." He smiled. "Yep. And then, will you come home with me? Not to stay the night, but for a little while. It's kind of lonely in that big house all alone." "I would love that. Maybe we could get a pizza?" He grinned. "Absolutely. Eat pizza and just relax. Hey, we could watch a movie. Dinner and a movie, classic date." "Sounds great. What movie?" He shrugged. "Anyone you want." He pulled out his phone and his fingers moved quickly. "What are you doing?" He looked up with a smile and tucked his phone away. "I just ordered the pizzas. We'll pick them up on the way to the house." "You ordered that fast?" "Well, I have a standing order on speed dial." "Of course you do," she laughed. Young Eric then joined everyone else, shaking hands, taking pics, and thanking the men who came to help with his training. He was glad when the crowd dwindled down. Eric asked his grandfather if there was anything he could do for him. "Yes, you can go home and rest. It's been a hard day. You outdid yourself, and I'm very happy with your progress." Young Eric smiled. "Thank you, sir. Thanks for all you do. And thanks for being here and training me." He hugged him. "I love you, Granddad." "I love you too, son. Now go." He was dismissed. He went to his grandmother and hugged her. "Thanks for coming, Grandma, and for the food." "My pleasure, sweet boy. I'm so proud of you. You were a beast out there today. I just know you're going to do well at the challenge, so don't you worry about that." "Thanks, Grandma. And how are you feeling?" She nodded. "Much better. And thank you for helping to give me a blessing. That was very special. 3 generations of Keno men all praying over little old me." "You're not old, Grandma. Age is a state of mind." She laughed. "You sound like your grandfather." He grinned. "Oh, then there's hope for me yet." "And now you sound like your father." Young Eric laughed. "Do you need any help with anything?" "Nope, it's all taken care of." Where are the kids?" "Luciana came to help today. She's at the house, and Agent Ward is there to assist her in anything she might need."